Something else that Dean Jackson is very famous for is the ideal prospect, and it's actually in order for you to understand the process of how we deal with people with the Winter Haven method, we need to understand what an ideal prospect is. What's a person that we're going to sell to, because that's why we're here, right? We are absolutely wanting to sell our products eventually when we have products. Of course, we don't have products right now. But what can we do? How can we make this all happen? So let's have a look at what the ideal prospect is. So a 5-star prospect, as Dean describes them, has these 5 characteristics. 1, are they willing to engage in a dialogue? Are they prepared to have a conversation with you? 2, are they friendly and cooperative? 3, do they know what they want? 4, are they ready to do it now, or is it a later thing? And 5 is, would they like me to help them? So the very first part of this process is, and here's the thing, if they're not willing to talk to you, they sure as heck are not going to buy from you. That makes sense, right? That makes absolute sense. So this, for me, is such a big deal, because the first thing we need to figure out is, are they prepared to have a conversation? Because if they're not prepared to have a conversation, they are certainly not going to buy from us. And that is the key to the Winter Haven method. We need a way for people to put up their hand and say, hey, I'm ready to do this. And what's really cool is that the trigger for are they willing to, what's engaging in a conversation when you talk about email? Exactly right. It is responding to an email, hitting the reply button. That is what this is all about. And that makes this so intriguing. So our first thing to make this process work is, are they willing to engage in a dialogue? Then when we're looking at the follow-on, are they friendly and cooperative? Because it makes no sense to do business with somebody who is not friendly and cooperative. And you think, well, Ed, but think about this. How many times have you been in a situation where you can just tell from the conversation that you're not landing, that they're just not going to do something? Let me tell you, it happens to me all the time. And so they're knocked out at the second stage of the 5-star prospect. 3, do they know what they want? If they're not certain about what they want yet, if they don't know what problems they need to solve, if they don't know what opportunities they need to capture, they're certainly not going to buy anything from you. They're still too uncertain. So we need to understand what that is. And the 4th thing, which is super crucial, is, are they ready to do something now, or is it something they're just looking at? Because if it's a later thing, it doesn't matter how cool, how clever, how awesome your product, service, what you do is, they're not going to do anything right now. They're just not. So wouldn't it make sense that any process, you have to understand that they're ready to do something now? And then the final thing is, would they like you to help? And remember that phrase, because that is going to become a key phrase. Wouldn't it be incredible to be able to go through this process now, like literally right now, tomorrow, today, as soon as you get emails and leads through? Wouldn't it be great, as you're trying to understand a market, to get a feel for each of these layers? Well, that is exactly what we're going to do. So what I want to talk to you is about the new way, the Winter Haven method, having a conversation. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this all works. So first of all, what I want to focus on is how it works for the 8. Okay, so if you recall, the 8 are, of 100 emails that you receive, 8 people are effectively ready to do something and buy right now. So it makes sense that we want to try and interact, and we want to try engage with those people. So how do we tell? How can we tell from an email address whether that person is ready to do this interaction? Well, the clue was back here. Are they willing to engage in a dialogue? So it makes sense if we ask a question and they respond to that question. What's that mean? In email terms, they're ready to they're engaging in a dialogue. They have just ticked the first star of a 5-star prospect. So how do we do it? Let's look at the path of somebody who is in this part of the process. So, and let me describe what happens with my stuff, right? So, and a lot of you may have indeed experienced this part of the process, all right? So, what happens here, right now is that, for me, people download my Sage document is my book, right? Your First Dollar. Okay, so what happens 24 hours after they buy the book from me, they receive a personal email from me. Hear that? A personal email, right? So they've downloaded the book, and I've got their email address, right? I've received that. So I send them an email with what you'll come to know and love as the cookie question. Okay. So what is a cookie question? Okay, well, good news is we're going to cover that in detail in just a moment. For right now, just so you can understand the process and where we're going with all of this, I'll just tell it to you. So for me, the cookie question I send out, which is a personal email, not some fancy autoresponder, just a personal email, and it says, "Hey, thanks for downloading my book. Have you got a market in mind, or are you starting from scratch?" That is my cookie question. And again, I'll talk to you about the characteristics and what makes that, because there's a lot of psychology inside that cookie question, and we'll unpack that coming very soon. For right now, though, I just want to explain the process. I ask this and send this email, and it's a personal email. It's my Edit Your First Dollar email, which I personally see. I personally see all of this. Right now, in your head, there's one alarm bell that's already ringing, and that alarm bell is, oh my gosh, Ed, isn't this going to ruin my life? I'm going to get all of these emails, and I have to respond personally to these emails? Doesn't that make that's insane, Ed? Well, can you hear this? That is the world's smallest sympathy violin playing the saddest sympathy song for you. Imagine for a second. Let's psychologically just think about this. Imagine you got 100 emails right from your lead gen ad. Hello. Right? You've hit the goal. You've hit gold, right? If 100 people actually respond to you, oh my goodness. Here's the thing. Call me and I'll do the niche for you, and I'll give you a 10% commish. How does that sound? Right? It's awesome, right? The reality is that we're going to get 4 or 5 emails a day, 10 emails a day, right? You can easily handle it's just responding to an email. It's not a big deal. And when you're learning a market, when you're just starting out, it's just going to be a couple of emails. So don't stress about it. All right. So I send the email, and at this point, one of 2 things is going to happen. Right? They either are going to respond, so they send me an email back of some description, or they don't respond. What does this mean? Well, if they don't respond, let's deal with that first. What's that tell me? They don't even make the first cut of a 5-star prospect, which is fun. In the old days, in the churn 'em and burn 'em, smash 'em over the head approach, they would have been burned forever. But in this approach, no big deal. All I've asked them is a question. Very simple, nothing, no buying. Hey, have you got a market in mind, or you're starting from scratch? If they don't respond, what's that automatically told me? I know for an absolute fact that they are in the 92 of 100. So I have to put them into the cookie delivery system. Again, don't worry, I haven't explained what that is, and trust me, I will by the time we are done. But they're going to go in because they're not ready to buy right now, okay? They're not ready to buy right now. So they go into the cookie delivery system. Now, in my case, just so you understand the process, my cookie delivery system is my weekly podcast. So they'll get an email from me once a week about my podcast. Now, but Ed, isn't that just free hugs? No, it's not, because I ask cookie questions inside the podcast. But again, don't dwell on that right now. I'm going to come back and explain what happens with the 92 very, very shortly. Okay? For right now, I want to deal with responders. So if they respond, let's bring that over here. So if they respond, guess what? Tick, tick, tick. They are by definition, or potentially, they are in one of the 8 and 100 because they've just clarified the very first part of if anybody is prepared to buy from you anything, anywhere, anytime, online, offline, it doesn't matter whatever you're talking about, they must be prepared to enter into a conversation with you. So what does this mean? What is the huge ramifications of this right now? Just listen to this incredibly carefully. If we're testing a market, and we can't get anybody to respond to our cookie email, then that probably means the market is not worth our time or our approach to that market. And let's say we do 3 or 4 experiments. It means as much as the market, we're collecting emails, they're not even prepared to have a conversation with me. So they're certainly not going to buy anything. But think about that. Just again, think about this in your head. We figured this out over a 48 to 72 hour time frame. How incredible is that? How incredible. So in lean terms, our first minimum viable product is, are they prepared to respond to this email? Now, here's the deal, right? Here's what's so exciting for you guys. When we're testing our market, what's our metric? For every 10 emails we receive, in an ideal world, if we get 1 response, we've got a winner. How amazing is that? How amazing. From not knowing for months what's going on, within the space of a couple of days, we get this incredible market validation that the market is awesome and it's ready to do stuff with us. How amazing is that? I hope you're understanding this. I hope you are getting the power of this because it changes everything. It changes absolutely everything because now we can be involved in a market and we can tell. So if somebody, I don't get very casual emails because often they think it's an autoresponder. They just say, oh, yes, I have a market, or no, I'm just starting from scratch. But that tells me there's a pulse. They're prepared to have a conversation. That's what's so amazing about this methodology, is within 48 to 72 hours, we can figure out whether our market has a pulse. And that key metric, 10 emails, 1. Now, very important. If you just get 10 emails and you get no responses, does that mean it's a dead market? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's so much more testing to do. Plus, we know Black-Scholes theory is that often we need to collect about 30 emails for us to be sure that we're not getting a response. And I have a great private client of mine, Adrian. He started off with one niche, and we were collecting emails all the time with this particular niche. And we tried and tried and tried, and 3 or 4 he was able to collect emails like it was going out of fashion. But nobody would respond to the cookie question. Nobody would respond at this point of the, so if they're not going to respond, they're certainly not going to buy anything. So just as an aside, we tried, okay, well, Adrian's got a particular hobby, and we said, let's just try what's going on here. Well, guess what? He collected 15 odd emails in the first 24 hours, and he had like 5 or 6 responses straight away. Boom. We know that market's going to work, right? It's just proved. We know that market's going to work. Now we've got to build a product and we've got to do all those other things. But think about the emotion of that. Think about the intellectual emotion of that. Within 72 hours, we have market validation. We're entering into a conversation with people. It's amazing. But Ed, okay, what about the 42? Well, here's the first thing to know about the 42. We don't know of the 92 people out of the 100 that responded. We don't know which 50 are never going to buy from anybody, and which of the 42 who are absolutely going to do something, but they need more education. They need more. They need more help. So, in that case, we create. They don't respond to the cookie. Effectively, these How do we know that they're in the 92? They don't respond to the cookie question. Okay, which is cool. Right? So what we need to do when we look at the 42 here, let's just click done there. So if we're dealing with the 42, then what we need to do is put them into a process. And as I said, for me, my exam. Now, what's a cookie delivery system? And again, we're going to design this in just a minute, so don't worry about this. I just want you to hear the full process first before we go into breaking this down. With me and Your First Dollar, it's a podcast. It could be so many things. It could be a newsletter. It could be a YouTube channel. It could be video. It could be anything. It just has to be consistent. Consistency is the key for a cookie delivery system. And for me, it's a podcast. And you'll notice in the podcast, I do various things. Like I'll offer a report, or I'll say, hey, join me on a marketing brainstorming session, and I'll invite people to a marketing brainstorming session. These are cookie questions embedded in my cookie delivery system. Guess what? Doesn't this make sense? Imagine when if somebody signs up to my marketing brainstorming session. Remember, they didn't initially respond to my initial cookie email some months ago. But now they've signed up to go to my marketing brainstorming session. What's that mean? You're absolutely right. It means they've gone from the 40. They may be ready right now to go. And if they attend the workshop, guess what? They've just raised their hand. They are potentially now ready to start the process of engaging. They've put their hand up again. And then once they put their hand up, so they've raised their hand, then I can engage them in my questions. Hey, have you got the market? And if they then respond, boom, off we go to the races. And this is where we're going. Monica's just emailed me. Mailed SageDoc to my email list and offered it to my Facebook group within one day. 8 mails and 2 asked for doing a strategy session. It's a market. That's absolutely right. We know now that is a market. Tick, you're ready to, how good does that feel? Right, when you know this. So that's the brilliant part of this process, is that by asking a cookie question, we can know with absolute certainty that our market is going to work. Because if we get that one, if we get 10 emails and we get one person responding, we are in business. We are in business, right? And that's our indicator right there.